Yo, good people. I just got back meditating in the park with some lovely, good people as well. And we were exploring this idea around like what could be just potential signposts and ways of framing the goal in terms of awakening. Like what are we actually doing here? And although there's certain traps to being reductionistic about trying to pin down what this thing is. And there's always like ways you can sort of counter a signal and say, well, it's actually not that. But just to give people more clarity on the path, like what are they actually doing? What is something worth aiming for? And coming up with this conception of thinking about transitioning states of our experience from solid to less solid, essentially finding in our experience um, which parts of our experience, this whole 3D experience space, relates to um, the phase of matter, which we call like solid, liquid, gas, plasma, and then ether. And a way of measuring one's progress is that there's less and less solidity in the body mind experience. So people start off from a place of like living in a very hardened 3D concrete world. You know, the world out here is perceived as like a solid structure. Their body is perceived as very hard. And even just bringing this up, that you cannot perceive it that way, that everything can become much lighter and flowy, and everything is perceived as not static and all in flow and movement and bridging the gap between sort of either or is a radical idea for people. Although we here and now actually we can find properties of our experience that are already not in the solid state. So uh, one place I might point to in terms of finding air in your experience is gaseous air. So this part of one's experience here already is very aerated, right? It's so expanded, so not contracted, and it's just as much a part of your experience as here and all there. Uh, and can you find this expansive quality in the body as well? There will be like aerated pockets and places like that. And then going into the really contracted places that you feel in your body and seeing if you can pierce them with your attention or vipassanize them, deconstruct them, and move them more into a state of like flowy liquid, then gas, then ether and plasma, which I'll explain later what those are. Um, heating them up with your awareness and your attention, heating up the gross contractions and to being able to loosen them. Notice that even within a tight constriction, or even notice that if I touch something seemingly very solid, like this wall, that sensation of hardness actually ebbs and flows. It's like sort of it's more hard than less hard, more hard than less hard, in that sense of the tip of my finger, the sensations, if you pay real close attention. And by training your perceptual faculties, you can lock in this uh, upgraded, higher refined states of attention, where you perceive that this is not a solid thing, even as I perceive it now. Um, so we go through this process, and one goal people can work towards is to have no parts of solidity in their experience. So, firstly, map the whole experience, recognize what you're working with, that your mind is not just this small thing in the head here, but actually it's this whole thing, right? And then scanning through and looking for points of solidity, and then working on those being tight somatic constrictions that we can loosen and let go of. And then there's many ways to do that. But eventually we can come to a point where there's just no more solidity being formed in any particular point of experience. And that is a big game changing moment once you get there. And then there can be continuous refinement through liquid and gas. Just to speak on like what is plasma and ether. So plasma is a state of matter like fire, where it's a super unstable condition that can't hold itself up. And we to relate to what parts of our experience might mimic sort of plasma in this way. Um, there's a lot of like finicky background flashings, static like thoughts and concepts and ideas and things that are kind of popping in and out of existence in our experience that never really stabilize, and you couldn't sort of pin them down or concretely define them. But that's a lot of what's going on. So uh, people may get into highly expansive states, like big open spacious awareness. So we can think of that as like the gas-like quality has really pervaded experience, and a lot of the rest of the experience of the solidity of the body has been loosened. But within that, you might notice like subtle cosmic microwave background radiation, static kind of buzzing. So we can relate that to plasma. And then ether is hard to talk about because it's purely theoretical and conceptual in this way, but it's noticing that spectrum, that trajectory of going from solid to less solid, and where this could go, where the far end of that spectrum can take one. And ether being, you can't perceive it, you can't measure it, you can't experience it, but the mind suggests something there, and what using that as a pointer to suggest what is kind of the beyond, right? And finding this non-quality quality. What does ether suggest? Where does it conjecture towards? Can you find that in your subtle presumptions, in the gliding towards less solidity, more expansion? There's a presumption of an extreme there. And that's just a feature in experience. This is where the sense of the immanent and transcendent codependently arise and come together. Um, it can be very hard. It's very subtle, very refined, but it's not there. And all an experience where all of the body mind has been raised to the state of ether is no experience. AKA, this would be cessation and the realization of nibbana. I'm losing my voice. Nibbana. Uh, in the meantime, before going there, we can still realize earlier states on this continuum. And I wanted to share a cool meditation I found quite spontaneously while hiking. This is like an elemental meditation. If you ever come across a stream, there's a good amount of flow with it. And if there's a safe place in the middle where you can meditate, like a rock, and then you have the river passing around you, and you tune into that current, close your eyes, tune into the flow, and you hear it, going around you. You might be able to use those sensations and the benefit of your imagination even to get that flowing right through you. And I found that was amazing for dissolving solidity. And before the center point disappeared for me, that was something I did. I remember, and it was like eroding away sort of the sense of a center. So if you ever get the chance, I recommend doing that kind of meditation. So anyway, just a like cool goal posting, giving people some direction here. Think about your journey in terms of melting solidity in your body mind experience, this whole thing, and working towards lighter, more expansive, less contracted states, therefore less suffering. Um, hope that helps, and cool little idea I wanted to share. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the day. Goodbye.